Breaking news from the United Kingdom tonight, and this time it's not about tradition or ceremony. It's about noise, secrecy, and money. A small London suburb, Nunham, once known for its quiet tree-lined streets, has become the centre of a royal mystery, shaking the confidence of even the most loyal subjects. What was first dismissed as a routine royal infrastructure project has spiraled into questions of corruption, cover-ups, and whispers that reach the corridors of Buckingham Palace itself. For the past fortnight, every night at precisely 10 o'clock, the sound of engines and metal has ripped through Nunham's peace. Locals describe it as a war zone. Excavators roll in, floodlights sweep across gardens, and the air vibrates with the clang of steel. Officials tell residents that this is a classified royal development, essential for national heritage. But residents say there are no permits, no signs, and no information, only envelopes quietly delivered to doorsteps, £500 in compensation. One elderly woman told reporters, "They call it royal progress, I call it royal intimidation." At first, mainstream outlets avoided the story. Then, a small local podcast aired an interview with a young mother who refused the payment. Within hours, the episode vanished from all platforms. That's when online forums erupted. Posts tagged number Royal Project Nunham flooded TikTok and X. People began comparing construction blueprints, traffic records, and drone footage. Something didn't add up. According to insiders close to Kensington Palace, the first red flag appeared when a senior advisor to Prince William overheard his wife, who had just returned from Nunham, complain about that dreadful project the palace keeps secret. Curious, the advisor checked the official royal maintenance database. Nothing, no project listed under Nunham, no record, not even a reference code. Every royal construction must be logged, approved, and cross-signed by the council. A ghost project inside the royal books is either a national security job, one source told the Mail, or a financial time bomb. Behind the scenes, aides describe Prince William's reaction as controlled but cold. The Prince of Wales, who has long pushed for transparency in royal spending, reportedly spent that same night reviewing transaction ledgers in his private office. He noticed small, fragmented payments to a construction firm named Denning & Sons, each under £50,000, spread across multiple departments. Experts we contacted confirmed this is a known tactic in financial laundering circles, transaction fracturing, breaking large sums into smaller, less suspicious pieces. Residents, meanwhile, began to notice new security patrols. Black SUVs without plates, uniformed men who refused to answer questions, and floodlights scanning like search beacons. A retired accountant from Nunham said, "It doesn't feel like a restoration site. It feels like someone building a fortress." Royal correspondents now suggest this may be the most significant financial irregularity linked to the royal estates since the late 90s maintenance audit. One commentator told us, "If money meant for preservation of heritage sites is being redirected, it's not just mismanagement, it's betrayal, a betrayal of taxpayers and of the Crown's integrity." The palace, as expected, has issued no comment. But our sources confirm internal discussions have already begun among William's closest advisors, who fear this could ignite another constitutional scandal if not handled discreetly. "William is determined not to let this become another tabloid circus," said one insider. "He'll find out who authorized it, even if the trail leads inside his own family." Across the United Kingdom, questions grow louder. Who is really behind the so-called royal project? Why are locals being silenced? And how deep does this mysterious construction reach into the palace's accounts? As one royal watcher put it, "The monarchy has weathered storms for centuries, but this one might come from within its own walls." Stay with us, because this story is only beginning to unfold. Prince William did not sleep that night. By dawn, sources say he was still in his study at Kensington Palace, surrounded by open folders, half-drunk coffee, and a wall of spreadsheets glowing pale blue on his screens. What he had found was not only puzzling, it was impossible. Every royal expenditure must pass through the Royal Maintenance Fund, a centuries-old treasury that pays for palace restorations, art conservation, and official residences. Yet the payments linked to the Nunham project had bypassed every authorization gate. Someone had built a hidden pipeline inside the Crown's own accounting system. According to a senior financial officer, the fund operates under 3 signatures: the Sovereign, the Keeper of the Privy Purse, and the Council Auditor. None of them had approved anything in Nunham. It means the paperwork was either forged or ghost-approved by someone with access to our encrypted channels, the officer told the Mail Online under condition of anonymity. He described the transactions as surgically precise, executed in small fragments between departments that rarely cross-check each other. To verify the anomaly, William summoned his longtime advisor, Lord James Harrington, a man known inside the palace as the Bookkeeper of Secrets. Harrington confirmed that over the past 3 months, roughly £2 million had been routed through minor restoration sub-accounts, one for roof repairs at Sandringham, another for security lighting at Windsor. But the funds didn't stop there, he said. They disappeared into 3 private firms registered in Greater London, firms with no history before spring this year. By mid-morning, the Prince had called in a young forensic analyst, Eliza Thorne, from the palace's Digital Compliance Unit. Thorne traced the flow line by line, mapping each payment into a single diagram. What emerged looked less like a renovation plan and more like a spider's web. Threads of red arrows converging toward one final destination, an offshore account in Jersey labelled Parker Heritage Trust. At this point, William reportedly froze. Parker. The surname rang through his head like an alarm. Tom Parker Bowles, Queen Camilla's only son. For years, the palace had maintained a delicate boundary. Tom lived outside royal duties, a successful food critic, occasionally seen at events but never tied to state finances. If this name appeared on royal ledgers, it would mean a breach of both protocol and law. Meanwhile, in Nunham, the so-called construction site grew louder. Drone footage sent anonymously to Royal Insider UK showed not scaffolding or restoration work, but the outline of a private mansion, complete with foundations for an infinity pool. Residents whispered that the walls were being made from imported Italian marble, not the typical brick used in Crown refurbishments. One construction worker, his voice disguised in a leaked voicemail, said, "They told us to keep quiet, double pay, no questions." The blueprints said, TPB residents. Insiders say William's immediate instinct was to verify before confronting anyone. He authorized a covert audit, assigning Thorne to examine historical voice authorizations stored in the palace's encrypted server. Every royal disbursement above £50,000 must be confirmed via recorded call. Within hours, she found something chilling. 6 midnight calls logged under priority restoration, each traced to Clarence House, where Queen Camilla resides. That evening, the Prince convened a private meeting in the palace's basement situation room, a soundproof chamber normally reserved for security briefings. The tone was grim. "We're not dealing with a clerical mistake," Thorne told him. "This looks deliberate." Harrington agreed. "Someone built an alternate approval chain, Your Royal Highness. Whoever it is knows exactly how to move within the walls." Financial experts outside the palace are equally alarmed. Professor Simon Gale of the London School of Economics told the Mail, "If this information is accurate, it represents a classic case of internal embezzlement, cloaked as administrative dispersion. Fragmenting payments under audit thresholds is a textbook move, but doing it within a royal fund takes insider coordination at the highest level." Palace press officials, when asked, responded only that the royal household does not comment on ongoing internal reviews. Yet a senior courtier admitted privately, "His Majesty would be devastated if this reaches him before we understand the full scale." King Charles is said to be recovering quietly after recent health issues, leaving William effectively in command of day-to-day oversight. By the following night, a courier arrived at Kensington Palace with an unsigned envelope. Inside, photocopies of invoices bearing a familiar seal, the golden lion insignia of Queen Camilla. Each invoice authorized payments for royal infrastructure renovation, Phase 3. The problem? Phase 3 had been completed 2 years ago. The seal was real, but the signature dates were wrong by months. That was the moment it became political, one insider explained. Because if Camilla's seal is on it, the suspicion doesn't just touch money, it touches the monarchy's chain of command. Outside the palace walls, reporters are circling. Social media hashtags like #RoyalLeak and #ParkerTrust trend across platforms. Even conservative commentators are beginning to ask whether the crown, long a symbol of continuity, is now showing cracks of secrecy from within. Inside, William's team continues in silence, aware that one wrong move could spark a constitutional crisis. Every email is encrypted, every call monitored, every page of evidence stored in a locked case, marked only with his initials. Transparency is the lifeblood of the monarchy, his father once told him. And tonight, William knows, if he cannot keep that blood clean, the throne itself could bleed out. Stay tuned, because the next discovery will change the royal narrative forever. The next morning, the chill over Kensington Palace was heavier than the fog outside. Inside, the atmosphere had shifted from suspicion to alarm. Prince William's private circle, Lord James Harrington, Eliza Thorne, and 2 legal advisers from the Crown Secretariat gathered in a secure briefing room where every phone was switched off and sealed in a lead-lined box. What had begun as a financial irregularity now looked like a coordinated scheme. And one name, whispered between them, carried the weight of both blood and betrayal: Tom Parker Bowles. According to Eliza Thorne's overnight report, the trail of payments linked to the Parker Heritage Trust stretched back nearly 4 months. The first deposits aligned perfectly with the date construction began in Nunham. Each company involved, Denning and Sons, Crownstone Logistics, and Marlowe Restoration, had directors connected, through at least one intermediary, to Arthur Denning, Tom Parker Bowles' longtime personal assistant. They didn't just funnel the money, Thorne explained. They built an entire network of shells to make it look legitimate. It's clever, too clever to be accidental. In a rare moment of candor, a palace insider later told the Daily Mail, William's face changed when he realized who might be behind it. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't swear. He just said, "Then it's family." By mid-morning, Lord Harrington travelled incognito to Nunham, dressed as a utilities inspector. His goal? Verify what was actually being built. With a borrowed ID and an unmarked van, he entered the site under the pretense of inspecting underground wiring. What he found shocked him. The structure wasn't a heritage facility or a restoration annex. It was a private residence of monumental scale. 3 stories, imported Italian marble, bulletproof windows, and a blueprint labelled TPB Residence. That evening, he returned to London with photographic evidence, blueprints, invoices, and a recording from one of the foremen who said, "They told us it's for a private royal member. We just follow orders." At Kensington, William listened in silence. When the recording ended, he simply asked, "Did he mention who gave the orders?" Harrington nodded. "Arthur Denning. And he says Denning was acting on behalf of Her Majesty." The words hung in the room like a gunshot. According to a source close to the investigation, William spent the next several hours reviewing old approval memos signed by Queen Camilla. The formatting of the forged documents matched hers exactly, right down to the spacing of the margins. Thorne confirmed that the seal used was a direct scan from Clarence House's archives, likely accessed through the internal printer system. Whoever forged them had access to both her signature and her encrypted authorization key. By midnight, the situation crossed a line. That was when William realized this wasn't just financial fraud, one advisor confided. It was constitutional. A consort had overridden the sovereign's financial barrier, bypassing the monarchy's legal firewall. It's an internal coup in paperwork form. Meanwhile, sources say Queen Camilla was fully aware of William's quiet probe. At Clarence House, she held a late meeting with her chief aide, Geoffrey Rawson, and ordered a complete internal cleanup. One insider overheard her saying, "Move the funds, burn the trail, and for God's sake, keep Charles asleep." That line alone, now circulating among palace staff, has become infamous. By dawn, the Parker Heritage Trust account showed an additional transfer, another £500,000. Thorne's team intercepted the data just in time. "They're accelerating," she said. "They know we're tracing them." Outwardly, the royals appeared calm. Cameras captured William attending a public charity event, smiling beside Catherine, the Princess of Wales. But behind that composed image, the storm was building. As one royal correspondent noted, this was the most dangerous kind of scandal, one that was invisible, sophisticated, and family-bound. Public curiosity grew darker by the day. Anonymous online accounts began leaking snippets, property registration forms, images of marble shipments labelled for Nunham, even an email header with the subject line, "Private Client, TPB." Comment sections exploded with speculation that Camilla was building a palace for her son, a gift from the monarchy's coffers. Inside Buckingham, senior courtiers debated whether to brief King Charles, but his health remained fragile, and the fear of another national embarrassment silenced them. "He cannot be told yet," one aide insisted. "The public would see it as betrayal at the highest level." William disagreed. That night, he drafted a handwritten letter to his father. It was direct, clinical, and damning. Misuse of the Royal Maintenance Fund, evidence enclosed. "I request immediate counsel." But he didn't send it. Not yet. Instead, he ordered what insiders now call Operation Ledgerfall, a full internal sweep, logging every transaction since the start of the year. For the first time, the palace's own system began investigating itself. "It's the monarchy's version of open-heart surgery," said one observer. "You're cutting into the institution while trying to keep it alive." In Nunham, the construction continued through the night, the sound of drills echoing through fog and sleepless homes. Locals whispered that the mansion was almost finished. One resident said, "It's not a royal project, it's a monument, and someone's building it in the dark." Back at Kensington, William stared at the illuminated map of transactions. Red lines pulsed across the screen like veins. Every route ended at the same name, Parker Heritage Trust. He turned to Thorne. "Keep digging," he said quietly. "But no one outside this room knows. Not yet, not even the king." And as dawn crept over London, one thing became clear. The heir to the throne was no longer just protecting a crown. He was fighting a shadow within it. The revelation broke through the royal walls like lightning. Inside Clarence House, Queen Camilla's composure was a mask of porcelain, calm but cracking beneath the surface. According to multiple palace insiders, she had known for days that William's investigation was closing in and that her son's fingerprints were all over the forged documents. But retreat was never her nature. "Camilla doesn't back down," one former aide told the Mail. "She eliminates the evidence before it breathes." And that night, around 1:30, Clarence House's private communications office was reactivated. Only 3 people were present: Camilla, her chief aide Geoffrey Rawson, and Arthur Denning, the assistant who had handled Tom Parker Bowles' construction deals. The Queen Consort issued orders with surgical precision. "You'll create the final audit packet," she said. Charles's and William's signatures, lifted from the Windsor Restoration Archives. "We stamp, seal, and date it for January. By dawn, this becomes an official project." Denning hesitated. "Your Majesty, those signatures..." Camilla cut him off coldly. "Are to protect the monarchy. We cannot allow an internal review to humiliate the crown in the press." Within hours, the forged dossier took shape, 47 pages of flawless bureaucracy, invoices, project plans, and authorization letters. Each bore the royal watermark and the golden lion seal. The timestamp matched the fiscal calendar perfectly. On paper, it was airtight. In reality, it was treason in ink. Meanwhile, across the city, William's covert team was still awake. At Kensington Palace, Eliza Thorne's eyes flicked between screens, tracking the live flow of transactions. Just after 2 a.m., she saw it, a new transfer, £3.8 million sent from Denning & Sons to an offshore branch in Jersey. "It's a dump and clean," she said urgently. "They're moving the entire fund before we can freeze it." William, who had been pacing silently for hours, stopped. "Then we're out of time." According to a palace source, the prince's next move was both risky and unprecedented. He contacted a discreet ally inside the Crown Financial Council, an independent auditor named Mr. Harris, known for his loyalty to the throne above personalities. Harris agreed to meet before sunrise at St. James's Palace. When he arrived, he was pale and visibly shaken. "They've started reassigning staff," he whispered. "5 of my team were ordered to Scotland overnight, all under internal audit relocation." He handed William a small USB drive, the copy of all original transfers before the forgeries. "Keep it safe," Harris said. "If they find out I gave this to you, I'm finished." Back at Clarence House, Camilla watched the city lights through half-drawn curtains. She appeared calm, but insiders later said her hands trembled slightly when she reached for her glass of red wine. She told Rawson quietly, "You will move the remaining accounts to the Jersey Trust before 6 a.m. After that, nothing exists." At 5:45, the transactions were complete. The Parker Heritage Trust account now held precisely £12.3 million, the total cost of the Nunham mansion. Tom Parker Bowles, unaware of the full extent of the chaos, celebrated privately with a small circle of friends at a Mayfair club. "He thought his mother had fixed it," one attendee later said. "He had no idea the hammer was already falling." By morning, William had everything: the timeline, the accounts, the forged seals. But he also knew the stakes. If he confronted Camilla publicly, the monarchy would ignite in scandal. If he stayed silent, the corruption would live beneath the crown forever. "He's torn between blood and duty," said a palace observer. "And every option ends with a loss." Legal experts consulted by the Mail called the alleged forgery a constitutional bomb. Professor Lydia Chalmers, an expert in royal jurisprudence, explained, "The sovereign grant and maintenance funds are audited under public law. If a consort signed documents impersonating the king, it's not just financial misconduct, it's a breach of royal privilege. That's near impossible to contain." As the hours passed, tension inside Buckingham grew. Senior courtiers debated damage control, drafting statements, in case of exposure. None were used. King Charles, still recovering and heavily medicated, remained unaware. That afternoon, Eliza received confirmation from a Jersey bank contact. The offshore account had been accessed under Camilla's authority code. She ran to William's office, the document trembling in her hand. "She signed it herself," she said, voice barely above a whisper. William's expression hardened. He knew the next move could define the future of the monarchy. "Prepare everything," he ordered. "Every file, every recording, every witness. We take this to father." For the first time since the investigation began, the heir to the throne was no longer working in shadows. He was preparing for confrontation, not with a bureaucrat, not with an outsider, but with the Queen Consort herself. At that exact moment, in Clarence House, Camilla received a discreet text from her aide. "He knows." She didn't flinch. She simply replied, "Then we move to Phase 2. According to insiders, Phase 2 was one word: deflect. And as the palace clock struck 6, the game inside Britain's oldest institution had entered its most dangerous hour. The royal forgery was now complete, the money gone, and the heir ready to strike. The silence before the storm had ended. The confrontation was inevitable. Buckingham Palace, late evening. No press, no photographers, no official record. Just a small oak-panelled room known as the Green Chamber, sealed from the inside. Prince William had called the meeting himself. No aides, no secretaries, only those directly tied to the Crown's financial authority. His father, King Charles, pale and recovering from his recent illness, sat at the head of the table. To his right, Queen Camilla, regal as ever in emerald silk. Across from her, William, Lord Harrington, and Eliza Thorne. Between them, a single folder marked Royal Maintenance Fund. Phase 3. The silence was suffocating. Charles broke it first. "William," he said softly, "you've accused your stepmother of forgery. That's not a small charge." William didn't hesitate. "No, father. It's not small. It's theft from the monarchy itself." He opened the folder and slid a USB stick toward the projector. The screen lit up, spreadsheets, invoices, and red highlighted transactions flowing to Parker Heritage Trust. £12.3 million, William said steadily, transferred from the royal fund to a private offshore account under the Queen Consort's authority. Camilla gave a quiet, measured laugh. "This is absurd. The project was approved by you, William, by your own hand." She reached into her bag and placed another folder on the table, thick, embossed with crimson leather. Inside were signed pages bearing the royal watermark and both their signatures. "This," she said, "is proof." "How?" For a moment, even Charles looked uncertain. William leaned forward. "Check the date, August 14th. You were in hospital, father, and I was with you." He turned to Eliza. "Explain." Eliza's voice was calm but sharp. "We analysed the ink patterns. The signatures were copied from last year's council minutes. The document code format is wrong by 3 digits, and the approval date matches none of the actual maintenance cycles. It's a digital forgery." Charles's face drained of colour. He stared at the papers, at his wife, then at his son. "Camilla, is this true?" For the first time, the Queen Consort faltered. Her hand shook slightly. "Tom needed help," she whispered. "He's been pushed aside his whole life. I wanted—" William cut her off. "You wanted to buy him a crown of his own." The words struck like thunder. Camilla rose abruptly, eyes flashing. "You think you're saving this family, William? You're destroying it." Charles's voice, frail but firm, ended the argument. "Enough. The monarchy survives by truth, not deceit." He turned to his son. "You'll take control of this matter. Recover the assets, quietly." Then, after a pause, to Camilla. "You will withdraw from all public duties, effective immediately." The Queen Consort didn't respond. She gathered her bag, her chin high, and walked out without another word. When the door closed, the king leaned heavily on his cane. "Our family broke long ago," he murmured. "But the throne must remain whole." William said nothing. Outside, the palace clock struck midnight, marking not the end, but the cost of survival. Clarence House lay in darkness. The Queen Consort had not been seen in public since the confrontation. Guards stood at every gate, and the curtains remained drawn. Inside, Camilla sat motionless by the window, her glass of wine untouched, her reflection trembling in the dim light. Sources say she had aged years overnight. Her phone buzzed endlessly, messages from her son, Tom Parker Bowles. "I'm at the airport. Geneva. Are you coming, Mother?" She stared at the screen, said nothing, and finally placed the phone face down on the table. By morning, every trace of the Nunham mansion was erased. William had acted swiftly. A demolition crew, the same that restored Windsor after the fire, worked through the night. The site was flattened in 3 hours, the rubble hauled away before sunrise. When the townspeople woke, all that remained was fresh earth and a new sign, New Royal Park, opening spring. A quiet, symbolic cover-up. The scandal would never reach the morning papers. At Buckingham, King Charles signed the final order to restore the stolen funds under a new initiative, the Nuneham Community Project. It would rebuild playgrounds, libraries, and public gardens, all funded by the recovered £12.3 million. To the public, it appeared a generous royal gesture. Behind closed doors, it was penance. For the insiders who witnessed it, the aftermath was haunting. Camilla wasn't dethroned, one aide whispered. She was erased, invisible, isolated, stripped of her voice. Her name was quietly removed from upcoming royal events and statements. No announcement, no explanation, only silence. As for William, those close to him said he returned to routine almost mechanically, but staff noticed he no longer smiled as easily. He spent long hours alone in his study, often staring at the city through the window, the same window from which his mother, Diana, once watched the lights of London fade. One night, Eliza Thorne entered the study to deliver the final report, confirmation that all funds were recovered and the Parker Heritage Trust account frozen. William read it, then placed the papers in a drawer. "No one will ever know," he said quietly. "That's how the crown survives." He took from his desk the letter he had once written to his father, the letter that could have exposed everything. Without a word, he tore it into pieces and dropped them into the fireplace. Flames flickered, devouring every line, every accusation, every truth, the air filled with the scent of ash and paper. Standing by the window, he whispered, "Power doesn't rest on the throne. It rests with whoever guards its secrets." London slept beneath a sky washed clean by rain. The noise was gone. Only silence, heavy, fragile, and royal. Thank you for watching this special report. If you followed this story to the end, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more exclusive royal investigations. Because as we've learned tonight, in the House of Windsor, silence is never the end. It's only the beginning.